Thanks everybody for coming. Representative Ballant could not be here today, but we'll talk a little bit about some of what she has been doing very successfully in bringing substantial sums of money into the state of Vermont. Bottom line is that between Senator Welch, the Congresswoman, and myself, we have brought in over $100 million into the state to address some of the very serious crises facing Vermont, and Peter and I will go into some detail in a minute about that. But before I go into that area, there is another area in the bill that was very important. I don't have to tell anybody in Vermont that our state and the country face a major healthcare crisis. Cost of healthcare is too expensive, often inaccessible. And in that bill is the ranking member of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. We were able to bring about very significant increases in funding for community health centers throughout Vermont. As you know, we have some 90 sites, I think about a dozen community health centers. About a third of the people in the state utilize community health centers for primary care, dental care, mental health counseling, and low-cost prescription drugs. So I think that's at a time when many of our community health centers are struggling, significant step forward. We're able to get more money for what's called the National Health Service Corps, which provides debt forgiveness for doctors and nurses who practice in underserved areas, et cetera. So we've made some progress in that. Peter and I have understood for a while that when we talk about the healthcare crisis in Vermont or any place, you have to talk about dental care. In Vermont, we don't have enough dentists. The cost of dental care is very expensive. And that's an issue we have been focusing on. And I'm proud to tell you that Detroit Mercy University is now, as we speak, near completion of what will be the largest dental clinic in the state of Vermont. And Peter and I were able to get $4.6 million to make sure that everybody in our state will be able to get the dental care that they need. This will be a clinic with 46 dental chairs, 46 dental chairs. It'll be staffed by third and fourth year students at the university under the supervision of Vermont dentists. It'll be open to anybody in Vermont, Medicaid, regardless of income. So I think it will be a very significant step forward in addressing the dental crisis. And Peter and I have been working very hard on that. I have believed for a long time that a lot of kids in our high schools want to get their hands dirty. They want to get out into the world. They want to do some work. They want to make some money. They want to develop some skills. And we have been woefully behind the eight ball in terms of apprenticeship programs. And I'm proud that working with career and technical education centers in Vermont, we brought in $2.5 million to make it easier for kids to get the training they need to acquire the skills that will provide very productive employment for them. I don't have to tell anybody that in Vermont, we, as is the case throughout our country, have a major housing crisis. Too many people are homeless. Too many people are spending 40–50% of their limited incomes on housing. Peter and I worked hard to bring in many millions of dollars in a variety of programs to help address the housing crisis in the state. Water infrastructure, wastewater, big issue. We've managed to bring in a rather significant sum of money for communities around the state, variety of communities, to help them with their water projects and their wastewater plants. There's an area that I've been working on that I believe very strongly about, and that is it is a very positive thing when workers themselves can own the places in which they work. And I managed to bring in almost $500,000 to help the Vermont Employee Ownership Center reach out to businesses who are about to sell. Maybe owners are retiring so that their workers can in fact own and operate their own companies. So those are just a few of some of the areas that I focus on. And now let me introduce Senator Welch, who has done a great job in so many areas in terms of securing money for Vermont. Peter?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bernie. Let me just say one thing that's very important to reassure Vermonters. In order for us to do the best possible job to bring your taxpayer dollars back to Vermont, Bernie as the senior senator, me as the junior senator, and Congresswoman Ballant as our sole member of Congress, do our very best to work together. Bernie and I serve on different committees, and by joining forces, we can be the most powerful advocates where the goal we have is to maximize the benefit to Vermont. Bernie and I are both on the Finance Committee. Of course, Bernie is the leader for us on the Help Committee, which is incredibly important jurisdiction for the well-being of Vermont. I serve on the Agriculture Committee. So it's really important for us to let Vermonters know that by us working together, we get the best opportunity to do the most we can. And Bernie, as our senior senator, I really appreciate how cooperative you have been with me and how your staff has been with us. And it's been great as well to work with Congresswoman Ballant. Number two, Vermont faces such significant challenges, and it is around affordability. And a lot of those issues around affordability are about housing. They're about health care. They're about a favorite concern of Bernie's in health care, and that's dental, where Bernie has done incredible work on that. It's about basic things like infrastructure and water and sewer, practical things that communities across our state need in order for the local leadership to move ahead in building affordable housing, on having access to health care through the community health centers that Bernie mentioned. Also, to help young people who, as Bernie said, I think that's a great term, they want to get their hands dirty. I just came from the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, where one of the directed spending grants that our office was able to get is $850,000 for them to extend that. And our senators here have been so supportive of Vermont Youth Conservation Corps and the incredibly good work they do getting young people involved in discovering their own sense of self and power and things they do that are all related to the environment. I know Senator Jeffords started on that, Senator Leahy, and now Bernie and I are following through on that. We have a list of the specifics that you'll have when we can go through them. But the overall goal here is to help Vermont that is facing such challenges with limited funds. There's no more COVID area funds, but almost unlimited challenges on things that really, really matter to the well-being of communities and to our future. And it's everything, as I mentioned, from housing to healthcare to the training for young people who are facing significant challenges, but it makes a huge difference for them when they can get training, when they can work in the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. These things really, really make a difference. So just a few of the ones that I'll mention. We're in housing. Bernie, you and I work together for the Vermont Housing Conservation Board. By the way, when I was a state senator, I was one of the original sponsors of the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. And I think when you were a young mayor, you started the first one in Burlington. Isn't that right? So there's a little bit of history here. So we're carrying through on that work, and we're pretty proud of it. Middlebury is going to receive a grant of $5.2 million for Ascend Housing Allies Incorporated. That is going to allow them to do affordable housing in Middlebury. $3.2 million for the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation to create new industrial park in Brattleboro that we hope will spur economic development and add up to 350 jobs. Windham County's economy needs help like many other parts of our state. $1.4 million for Northeastern Vermont Regional Hospital to construct new pharmacies in Caledonia County. We're getting pharmaceutical deserts, like we're getting food deserts, like we're getting newspaper deficits. And so much of the work that we try to do together is to empower local rural communities that absolutely are vital to the well-being of Vermont, in my view, vital to the well-being of America. $1 million for craftsberry saplings to expand available child care. Young people can't work if they don't have access to child care. And this terrible choice of whether you can start a family or you can't because you can't afford child care or you have to give up your job, that's not acceptable. So both of us have been totally focused on doing anything and everything we possibly can to help families, young families, have affordable child care and be able to have a career as well. And I mentioned the $814,000 for the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. You know, I really like that one, Bernie. You say get their hands dirty. That's like hard work. Have you seen those folks? They're growing crops. They're distributing the food. And then I saw some of the trail crews that were out on these trails I hike. And I think it's a big deal because I hike on these trails and I make it up. I started seeing who made the trails possible to hike on and the rocks they have to move. And it's just so inspiring to me to see that our young people are willing to do that. They camp out on the trail sites where they're doing all this terrific work. So we can't necessarily claim that we do much useful in Washington with what's going on these days. But what we are able to do because of our positions to help bring some of Vermont taxpayer dollars back to Vermont that can be used for the benefit of Vermont is a nice thing for us to be able to report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And I neglected to mention that Becca Ballard has done a great job in the House. It's harder to get money in the House because there are 435 of them, but she's gotten some $11 million, including the Melrose Terrace redevelopment in Brattleboro, Southridge Workforce Housing in Springfield, and fire station construction in Pownell and Grandel. So she's done a great job as well.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions folks have?
Senator, I feel like healthcare is such a huge issue in our state. Why did you decide to focus on community health centers specifically out of everything?
I'll tell you why. As you know, the United States of America is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. And we've got over 85 million Americans uninsured or underinsured, despite the fact that we spend by far the highest prices in the world for health care of any other nation. So we have a dysfunctional, broken, collapsing healthcare system. And we are working hard to change that. Peter and I are working on legislation that I introduced called Medicare for All. It would expand Medicare over a 4-year period, guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child as a human right. All right, we're gaining more and more support for that as people all across this country. I think in Vermont, there was a poll that came out recently. 70% of the people in Vermont support a Medicare for All single-payer program. Now, that's higher than other states, I expect. But as people see the system collapsing, they can't find a doctor, they can't afford healthcare, they can't afford prescription drugs. They know that the function of this system is to make drug companies and insurance companies incredibly rich and not address their healthcare needs. So, having said that, at the very least, what I want to see happen, while we can't at this moment, because of what's going on in Washington, who's running the government there, while we can't progress to a Medicare for All system, at the very least I want to do is expand primary health care. I want everybody in the state to be able to walk into a doctor's office when they need to. And community health centers right now are serving the needs of about 200,000 Vermonters. So by expanding funding, I think it'll allow them to have the staffing they need to maybe expand what they are doing. And it is cost effective. You go to an emergency room for a non-emergency care, cost you 10 times more than it would walking into a community health center. So I've been a strong advocate, as Peter has been, for community health centers throughout the state, and I think we made some progress in this bill.
Senator, did you have a chance to talk to Governor Scott and talk to him about some of his ideas about healthcare reform in the state?
Actually, we're going to be meeting with the governor in a little while.
Got it.
Yes. Just tell us where you're from, please.
Senator, my name is Evan Warren. I'm a student at Norwich University, military academy of the state of Vermont. I'm commissioning in the Marine Corps this year. I wanted to ask a bit of an off-topic question, specifically regarding flooding. I've never been personally affected, but not many people realize Vermont is actually a very flood-prone state during certain times of the year, specifically wet season. In my own school, the makeup of the school is designed so our athletic facilities, our football fields, etc., will save the town of Northfield, take most of the flooding. However, in recent years, the last time there was a major flood, well, it did take most of the water, like many of our barracks were flooded out, many of the local towns, people,
Yep.
they were flooded out of their homes,
Yep.
and that was just a couple years ago. I was wondering, is there any work your office or other Vermont offices or committees you work with are doing to update Vermont's current flood infrastructure? Or as of right now, we believe there needs to be.
Well, I think it's more of an issue on that particular issue that the legislature, the governor, will deal with. But it is no secret to anybody that in the last couple of years, this state has seen horrific flooding in a number of communities, in my view, directly related to climate change. And we've got to recognize that reality and a whole bunch of things that we have to. I don't want to get into great length right now, but one of the things that we are doing is, in this bill, actually bringing money for Barry to help them with their housing crisis, which resulted from those floods. Other questions from the press, actually?
We of course have a very aging state population. Did that influence your decision to invest in career, like technical schools specifically? What were the events?
Look, we will want, and I'll let Peter jump in here, we want to make this state the best state that it could be for young people to be raising their families. And in terms of career technical centers, here's the truth. Peter and I worked really hard during the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act to bring in billions of dollars into this small state for infrastructure. And I think what the governor will confirm is we don't even have the workforce to expend that money, all right? So what we need is to make sure that we have workers in this state. We have plumbers and electricians and sheet metal workers and all types of construction trade workers who can help us rebuild our infrastructure. And the jobs, those jobs pay really, really good wages. But we got to make sure that our young people get the training that they need so they can do that. Peter, do you want to add anything to that?
No, you've said it. We need opportunities for young people. And by the way, trades jobs, any kind of job, these are really important in every state, but especially in Vermont. So the demographic challenges we have, we're well aware of. And we want to make certain that every Vermonter who wants to work is going to have an opportunity to do that.
Okay, maybe a last question if there is one from the media.
Senator, I have a question about the National Guard. You were both, I think, fairly critical of the National Guard's deployment to the Caribbean to participate in the...
Well, not the National Guards. I was critical of the president's decision to undermine the Constitution and make a unilateral attack on Venezuela.
Absolutely understand. Sorry for that. Thank you for the clarification. We're hearing now that the Vermont National Guard is being redeployed to the Middle East, potentially put pressure on Iran. Have you heard that yourselves?
No, I don't, Peter.
And
you-
do you have a reaction to that?
Look, we have tragically, in my view, a president who does not believe in the Constitution of the United States, or in fact believe in the rule of law. It is no great secret to any Vermonter or any American that it is Congress that determines whether or not this country goes to war, not a president who may want to attack Denmark because they didn't give him a Nobel Peace Prize to go after Greenland, you know? That's pretty crazy stuff. So we are going to do our best with the War Power Resolutions Act to try to control this president from getting us into unnecessary wars.
Yeah, just, this is about the president, the abuse of his authority. This is not about the Guard. And in fact, two of the earmarks are $2 million earmarks for the Guard. We support the Guard. They serve us. They have no control over how a president acts. And what the president is doing is absolutely abusing his authority as an executive to use military action without consulting with Congress. And both Bernie and I are adamantly opposed to that executive overreach. It's extremely dangerous. That's about the executive and abuse of executive authority. And we are doing all we can for Congress, instead of capitulating to an overreach, stand up for the independent role that the United States Senate has when it comes to the question of sending our young men and women into combat.
Okay, good. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.